Obviously, I thought the refs did a really good job tonight on it, actually, and that's kind of been their focus going into this season is, I know there was a committee of people that really wanted them to start calling things, and I thought they did a great job of that, honestly. I thought the refs were great, and I just landed on my kneecap really hard.
Picture this scene. The final buzzer sounds. The scoreboard reads Dallas Wings 95, Indiana Fever 80. A preseason loss that, on the surface, looks disappointing, maybe even alarming. You scroll through social media and see the takes flying everywhere. People questioning the roster, people questioning the coaching, people wondering if the Fever are actually ready for the regular season. But then, you actually watch the game film. You look beyond the final score. You dig into what really happened on that court Thursday night. And suddenly, everything changes. Because buried inside that one 5-point preseason loss are two bombshells so significant that they completely reframe the entire narrative around this Indiana Fever team. Two developments that, when you understand their full implications, should have every single Fever fan not just relieved, but genuinely excited about what's coming when the games actually start to matter. The first bombshell? Caitlin Clark put on an absolute clinic in limited minutes, looked completely healthy, played with the kind of efficiency that separates good players from elite ones, and then walked off the court after a scary fall that turned out to be nothing serious, nothing structural, nothing that's going to keep her out of Saturday's game against Nigeria. The second bombshell? Aliyah Boston, the owner of the richest contract in WNBA history, the Fever's second-best player, the anchor of everything this offense wants to do, just got fully cleared to return for Saturday's game. She's off the injury report entirely. She's ready to go. So let's break all of this down properly. Let's talk about what actually happened Thursday night, why Clark's performance matters more than the final score, why Boston's return fundamentally changes what this team can do, why the injury scare was a lot less serious than social media made it seem, and what it all means heading into the regular season opener on May 9th against that same Dallas team that just beat them. Because here's the truth that every Fever fan needs to understand right now. This preseason loss doesn't tell you where this team is going. Clark's 21 points in 16 minutes does. Boston's clearance to return does. And once you see the full picture, you'll understand exactly why the Fever are positioned to be one of the most dangerous teams in the WNBA when the real games begin. Let's get into it. Before we get into everything else, let's establish some important context about what this game actually was and what it wasn't. This was the Indiana Fever's second preseason game of the 2025 season, preseason game number 2. A game that counts for absolutely nothing in the standings. A game where coaches are specifically designed to use it as a laboratory rather than a proving ground. A game where rotation testing, minute management, and player evaluation take priority over winning. And when you understand that framework, the final score of Dallas 95, Indiana Fever 80 looks completely different than it does at first glance. Head coach Stephanie White made no secret of the fact that this roster was working through significant absences. Aliyah Boston, arguably the second most important player on this team, sat out both preseason games with a lower leg injury. Lexi Hull, one of the Fever's most reliable two-way contributors, was also unavailable due to a hamstring issue. So right away, before the ball was even tipped, the Fever were going into this game without two significant pieces of their intended starting rotation. But it goes beyond just personnel. White was also deliberately using this game to evaluate depth players, to give extended minutes to bench contributors who need game experience, to test different lineup combinations and rotations that you simply cannot evaluate in practice. When you're giving meaningful minutes to players who might be fighting for the last roster spots, the final score is almost beside the point. And yet, even with all of those circumstances working against them, even with the missing players and the intentional rotation experimentation and the clear focus on player development over winning, Caitlin Clark still went out there and put up one of the most efficient scoring performances you'll see from any player in any league at any level this early in a season. That's the thing that matters. That's the number that should be dominating the conversation right now. Not 95 to 80. Not the margin of defeat. Not the defensive breakdowns that Stephanie White correctly called out in her post-game press conference. 21 points, 16 minutes. Those are the numbers that tell you where this team is headed. Let's talk about what Clark actually did on Thursday night, because the raw numbers don't even fully capture how impressive this performance was. 21 points in 16 minutes of action. That's the headline, and it's a spectacular one. But let's go deeper into the efficiency metrics, because that's where you really see how locked in Clark was in this game. 4 of 6 from the field. That means Clark was converting at a 66.7% clip from the floor overall. For context, that's an elite shooting percentage for any player in any game, let alone a guard who's operating primarily in space, handling the ball, creating for others, and functioning as the primary offensive engine for her team. Guards who shoot 66% from the field in games have nights that get talked about for weeks. Clark did it in 16 minutes. But the number that really jumps off the page is the free throw performance. 11 of 13 from the charity stripe. That's not just good shooting. That's a statement about Clark's aggression, her ability to draw contact, her skill at selling fouls, and her composure at the line when it matters. A player who goes to the free throw line 11 times in 16 minutes is attacking relentlessly. She's not settling for jump shots. She's not backing down when defenders crowd her. She's driving into contact, absorbing it, and converting. And 11 of 13 from the line means she's converting those opportunities at an 84.6% rate. Even when defenders are sending her to the line intentionally, hoping to limit her damage, she's still punishing them. Add in 4 assists, which demonstrates she was still playing within the flow of the offense and creating for teammates despite scoring efficiently herself. Add 3 rebounds, which shows she was active on the glass even in limited minutes. This is a complete performance. This isn't a player who got hot on a few pull-up jumpers and inflated her scoring total. This is someone who was attacking the paint, drawing contact, converting free throws, moving the ball when teammates were open, and rebounding beyond her positional expectations. And here's the context that makes this even more impressive. This was just her second preseason game. The first game showed some expected rust, but the kind of rustiness that comes from an off-season, from the natural process of shaking off inactivity and getting back into competitive rhythm. But by game 2, that rust was completely gone. The shots were falling. The free throws were automatic. The pace was back. The decision-making was sharp. Autos. And the intangible that separates Clark from most players in this league, that extraordinary ability to make everyone around her better through her gravity and her playmaking vision, was operating at full capacity. Clark is only 24 years old, entering her 3rd WNBA season, and she's already producing at this level, already carrying this kind of offensive responsibility, already demonstrating the efficiency metrics that define elite NBA players, not just elite WNBA players. She's the most watched player in the league for a reason, and Thursday night was a reminder of exactly what that reason is. When you see 21 points in 16 minutes from Caitlin Clark in a game where her team was missing 2 significant contributors, where the coaching staff was experimenting with rotations, where the final score was a 1-5-point loss, the only rational reaction is to be more excited about this team, not less. Now let's address the moment that had every single Fever fan holding their breath on Thursday night. Because if you were watching the game live, you know exactly what happened, and you know exactly why the reaction was what it was. Early in the 3rd quarter, Clark went up for a 3-point attempt and was fouled by Dallas forward Atlanta Smith. Smith went for the block but didn't give Clark the proper landing space that officials are increasingly vigilant about protecting. Clark came down and landed hard on Smith's foot. Both players went to the floor. Clark was immediately, visibly limping. The officials reviewed the play and upgraded it to a flagrant 1 foul, which was the right call and an encouraging sign that the league is taking shooter protection seriously. Clark went to the line and made 2 of her 3 free throws despite clearly being in discomfort. Then she walked to the bench. And then she didn't come back. For Fever fans, that sequence triggered immediate, visceral anxiety. Because this is exactly the pattern from last season. Clark goes down. The team manages it carefully. And ultimately, she ends up missing significant playoff run time, leaving the Fever without their most important player at the worst possible moment. So when she limped off the court and didn't return Thursday night, the collective worry was completely understandable. It wasn't overreaction, it was pattern recognition. Fever fans have watched this movie before, and the ending wasn't good. But then the first bombshell dropped, and everything changed. Clark, speaking to reporters after the game, explained exactly what happened in simple, reassuring terms. She landed on her kneecap. Hard. It hurt. Visibly, noticeably hurt. But there's no structural damage, no sprain, no ligament concern, no tear. Nothing that's going to keep her out of Saturday's game against Nigeria, and nothing that's going to affect her heading into the regular season. Just a hard fall on a kneecap that hurt in the moment. The kind of thing that looks genuinely scary when you're watching a player you care about, but turns out to be the basketball equivalent of stubbing your toe really, really hard. And Stephanie White confirmed in her post-game press conference that pulling Clark from the game was, in large part, a precautionary decision built on an already existing plan for how to manage her minutes. The plan had always been to give Clark some third-quarter run and then get her out. When she took that hard fall, it simply accelerated a timeline that was already in place. Why risk anything additional in a preseason game when the plan was already to limit her anyway? This is what smart, professional team management looks like. This is what an organization that understands long-term prioritization over short-term results does. They don't push their franchise player through a preseason game for the sake of appearances. They protect her. They manage her. They make sure she's 100% ready when the regular season starts on May 9th. And every game from that point forward actually matters. The Fever aren't taking chances with Clark, and that should give every fan enormous confidence. Because an organization that's this deliberate and this thoughtful about protecting their most important player is an organization that's thinking about championships, not preseason results. Clark is not on the injury report for Saturday. She's fine. And the scary moment that had fans everywhere holding their breath turned out to be nothing more than a hard landing on a kneecap that looked much worse than it was. Exhale. Everything is okay. Now let's talk about the development that might actually be more significant in terms of what it means for Indiana's championship potential. Because as spectacular as Clark's performance was, and as relieved as everyone should be about her health, the news about Aliyah Boston might be the bigger story. Boston has missed both preseason games with a lower leg injury, and her absence has been genuinely felt. Not just in the box scores, not just in the final results, but in the entire texture and quality of what the Fever have been doing on both ends of the floor. But now she's cleared, fully cleared, off the injury report entirely, ready to return for Saturday's game against Nigeria. And that changes absolutely everything about how we should be thinking about this Fever team. Let's talk about who Aliyah Boston actually is, because it's worth establishing just how important her presence is to everything Indiana wants to do. Boston is a 3-time WNBA All-Star. She holds the richest contract in WNBA history. Last season, playing through an injury-plagued year, where she was often the only fully healthy star on the roster, she averaged 15 points, 8.2 rebounds, and 3.7 assists per game, while shooting 53.8% from the field. She finished 6th in MVP voting. 6th in MVP voting on a team that was constantly undermanned and missing key contributors. Think about that for a moment. Boston was essentially carrying the Fever through stretches last season, doing it at an elite efficiency level, and the team's best individual performer, not named Caitlin Clark, was still finishing in the top 6 of MVP consideration. She's that good. She's that important. She's that integral to what Indiana is trying to build. When Boston is on the floor, the Fever are a fundamentally different team. The offense becomes genuinely multi-dimensional. Clark has a legitimate inside-out threat to work with, which opens up spacing, creates cleaner driving lanes for Clark's penetration game, and forces opposing defenses to make impossible choices. Do you sag off to protect the paint against Boston's postgame and give Clark open threes? Do you hedge out on Clark and risk Boston dominating in the interior? There's no good answer when both players are healthy and operating at full capacity. The rebounding situation improves dramatically. The Fever have been getting absolutely crushed on the glass in both preseason games, and Stephanie White didn't sugarcoat that reality in her post-game comments. Dallas out-toughed them. Dallas won the rebounding battle decisively, and a significant portion of that disadvantage comes directly from playing without Boston, who is one of the premier rebounders at her position in the entire league. Put Boston back on the floor, and that interior toughness problem gets addressed immediately. The post defense also improves. The Fever can go to Boston in crunch time situations when they need a high percentage scoring option against a tough defensive possession. They can use her as a screen setter to create looks for Clark. They can run pick and roll combinations that become genuinely unguardable when both players are at full health. The Monique Billings and Maisha Hines-Allen pairing at center has been admirably competitive in Boston's absence. Both players have given the Fever serviceable minutes and shouldn't have their contributions minimized. But neither of them is Aliyah Boston. Neither of them commands the same defensive attention. Neither of them creates the same spacing advantages for Clark. Neither of them gives the Fever that same combination of interior scoring, rebounding, passing, and defensive presence that Boston provides. Boston's return for Saturday against Nigeria gives the Fever exactly what they need heading into the regular season. One more preseason game to get their full rotation working together. One more opportunity to build the chemistry and communication that comes from playing alongside each other rather than just practicing together. One more chance to establish the offensive and defensive patterns that will define their regular season success. And then they'll have a full week to prepare for May 9th, when the real games begin, when every result matters. When the Fever get Dallas again on a stage that actually counts. Let's spend some time on Stephanie White's post-game press conference, because the head coach said some things that are genuinely important for understanding where this team is and where it's going. White didn't hide behind the preseason context. She didn't wave away the performance issues with, "Oh, it's just preseason, it doesn't matter." She called out the problems directly and specifically. And that matters because it demonstrates an organizational culture of accountability that championship teams require. She said the urgency wasn't there, that Dallas wanted it more, that her team was disconnected on the defensive end of the floor, that the Fever were standing and watching rather than moving when the ball moved, which is a specific and correctable tactical flaw. She said Dallas crushed them on the glass, that Indiana got out-toughed, and that the levels of urgency were simply different between the two teams. These are honest, accurate, uncomfortable observations from a head coach who isn't interested in managing perceptions. White sees what she sees, she says what she sees, and she holds her players to a standard that reflects genuine competitive expectations rather than preseason adjusted ones. But here's why White's honesty should give fans confidence rather than concern. A coach who sees problems clearly can fix problems specifically. A coach who glosses over issues because it's just preseason can't address those issues with the targeted precision that effective coaching requires. White is watching film. She's identifying the specific defensive rotations that broke down. She's pinpointing the offensive sequences where the team settled for difficult shots instead of moving the ball to create easier ones. She's cataloging the rebounding situations where effort and positioning fell short of acceptable standards. And she has all of that information now, with time to address it before May 9th. That's exactly what preseason is designed to do. Surface the problems, name them specifically, address them in practice with the focused precision that only comes from seeing them happen in a game environment. The Fever have real issues to clean up. That's true. The defensive connectivity wasn't there Thursday night. The rebounding effort needs to improve significantly. The offensive decision-making, specifically the tendency to try complicated plays when simple ones were available, cost them possessions they needed. But all of those things are correctable. None of them are structural problems with the roster construction or the coaching philosophy. They're the natural result of a team that's still developing cohesion, still integrating new players, still missing key contributors, and playing meaningful minutes for bench players who are still learning the system. Add Boston back to the mix. Get Hull back healthy. Give Clark the full complement of weapons she needs to operate at maximum effectiveness. And suddenly, those problems look a lot more manageable. There's a story within the story of Thursday's game that hasn't gotten nearly enough attention, and it's one that speaks to something deeper and more significant than any single game result. Raven Johnson, the Fever's rookie point guard who they drafted specifically to be part of the next evolution of this team, logged 21 minutes against Dallas and produced 3 points, 5 assists, and 5 steals. 5 steals in 21 minutes. That's not luck. That's instinct. That's defensive awareness and anticipation that you cannot coach into a player who doesn't already have it. Johnson is showing exactly why the Fever drafted her. She's showing that she can function as a legitimate playmaker alongside Clark, that she can provide genuine defensive pressure that the Fever need from the guard position, and that she's not intimidated by the professional environment despite being a rookie in just her first preseason. But what Clark said about Johnson after the game matters more than any statistic Johnson produced. Clark talked about how difficult the terminology is when you first arrive in the WNBA, how the professional game is a completely different style from college, and how that adjustment period can be disorienting and challenging even for players who dominated at the college level. Clark talked about the responsibility she feels, and that veterans who understand the coaching system feel, to help younger players navigate that adjustment. And then she said something that speaks to leadership in the truest sense. She said that this is what veterans are supposed to do: help the younger players. Create an environment where rookies can ask questions without fear of judgment. Build the culture that makes teams sustainable over the long term rather than just competitive in the short term. This is significant for a number of reasons. Clark is 24 years old. She's entering only her third WNBA season. By any objective measure, she's still in the early stages of her own professional career. She's still learning, still developing, still adding layers to her game. And yet, she's already operating with the mentality of a veteran leader. She's already thinking about her responsibility to teammates who are younger and newer to the environment. She's already modeling the behavior that winning cultures require from their most important players. Championship teams aren't built solely on talent. They're built on talent plus culture. And culture is created by how the best players treat the newest players, by whether star players make themselves available for questions, by whether veterans create an environment where asking for help is celebrated rather than seen as weakness. Clark is building that culture in Indiana. She's doing it actively and deliberately, not as a PR exercise, but as a genuine reflection of how she thinks about her role on this team. And that matters enormously for what the Fever can become over the next several years. Johnson is the beneficiary of that culture right now. And 2 years from now, when Johnson is the established veteran helping the next wave of rookies understand the system, she'll pass that culture forward. That's how organizations sustain excellence over time. Let's zoom out now and think about what all of this means in the context of the regular season picture. Because that's ultimately where everything is headed, and that's where all of this preseason groundwork is meant to pay off. The Indiana Fever opened their regular season on May 9th against the Dallas Wings, the same team that just beat them 9-5 80 inches Thursday's preseason game. The same Paige Bueckers and Ozzie Fudd that gave the Fever problems with their athleticism and offensive versatility. The same team that out-toughed Indiana on the boards and generated the kind of urgency differential that White called out specifically in her postgame comments. But the Fever that takes the floor on May 9th is going to look completely different from the team that played Thursday night. Boston will be on the court. Hull will be back from her hamstring issue. The full rotation will be available and established. And the intensity, the genuine competitive intensity that comes from knowing results actually matter, will be operating at a completely different level. Think about what that Fever lineup looks like at full strength. Clark running the offense, attacking gaps, drawing defensive attention, and creating for teammates with the passing vision that makes her truly special. Boston posting up, dominating the glass, giving Clark a reliable interior option that forces defenses to make impossible coverage decisions. Hull providing the defensive tenacity and perimeter shooting that gives the coaching staff tactical flexibility. The supporting cast filled in with players who now have 2 preseason games of experience in White's system. That's a dangerous team. That's a team with genuine championship aspirations. Not because the preseason results have been encouraging, they haven't been, but because the individual talent level and the tactical intelligence of the coaching staff give them the tools to compete with anyone in the league when everything is clicking. And the Bueckers versus Clark storyline adds a layer of narrative intrigue that makes May 9th genuinely one of the most anticipated regular season openers in WNBA history. 2 number 1 overall picks. Clark in her 3rd year, already established as the league's most watched player. Bueckers in her 1st year, coming off an iconic college career at UConn that generated enormous anticipation for her professional debut, playing together for the first time in what actually matters. Thursday night gave us a preview. Clark had 21 points in 16 minutes. Bueckers had 20 points in 20 minutes on 8 of 12 shooting from the field. Both looked elite. Both were efficient. Both demonstrated why they're going to be the 2 most talked about players in the WNBA this season. But when May 9th comes, the stakes will be real. The preparation will be complete. The intensity will be genuine. And the Fever, with their full roster healthy and a week of focused preparation behind them, will be a fundamentally different team than the one Dallas beat Thursday night. Before we get to the conclusion, let's be honest about the things that actually warrant attention, because fan confidence built on ignoring legitimate concerns isn't useful or sustainable. The defensive connectivity issues White identified are real. The Fever were not a cohesive defensive unit Thursday night. They weren't rotating properly. They weren't communicating. They were giving Dallas too much freedom to move the ball and move themselves wherever they wanted on the court. That's a problem that needs to be addressed with urgency before May 9th. The rebounding issues are real. Indiana has been getting dominated on the glass in both preseason games. Some of that is Boston's absence, and her return will help significantly. But not all of it. The team needs to develop greater collective urgency and toughness on the boards, and that's a cultural and effort issue as much as it is a personnel one. The offensive discipline needs improvement. There were too many possessions where the Fever tried to make the highlight reel play when the simple, correct play was available. Too much dribbling, too much isolation, not enough ball movement and trust in the offense's designed structure. White talked about this in her post-game comments, and it's a legitimate area of needed growth. These are real problems. They're worth taking seriously. But they're also exactly the kind of problems that preseason is designed to surface so coaching staffs can address them before the games actually count. White sees them, her staff sees them, and they have the time, the talent, and the coaching intelligence to make significant improvements before May 9th. The key question heading into the regular season isn't whether the Fever are perfect. They're clearly not. The key question is whether they have the talent ceiling, the coaching quality, and the organizational culture to compete for a championship when they're operating at full capacity. And the honest answer to that question is an emphatic yes. Let's spend a moment on the longer arc of what's happening in Indiana, because the 2025 season is just one chapter in a story that's still in its early stages. The Fever are a young team. Clark is 24. Johnson is a rookie. Several other key contributors are in their mid-20s. This isn't a team that's trying to squeeze one last championship run out of an aging roster before the window closes. This is a team that's in the process of building something that could be sustainable and dominant for the better part of a decade. Boston's contract, the richest in WNBA history, signals that the organization is committed to building around a core of elite players rather than constantly cycling through rosters. Clark's presence and her growing leadership role signals that the team's most important player is invested not just in individual success, but in collective excellence. White's coaching philosophy, which demands accountability while also creating an environment where development is prioritized, signals that the organizational culture is moving in the right direction. The 2025 season doesn't have to end with a championship for it to represent significant progress toward where this franchise is going. Getting to the finals would be progress. Making a deep playoff run would be progress. Establishing the kind of regular season dominance that comes from a fully healthy roster working within a coherent system would be progress. But don't sleep on the championship possibility either. When Clark is operating at the efficiency she showed Thursday night, in a meaningful game context, when Boston is healthy and dominant in the interior, when Hull and the supporting cast are providing the role player excellence that separates good teams from great ones, the Fever are capable of beating anyone in the WNBA on any given night. That's not wishful thinking. That's an honest evaluation of the talent on this roster and what it's capable of producing when everything comes together. Let's bring this all the way back to where we started. The Indiana Fever lost to the Dallas Wings 9-5 80 inches, their second preseason game of 2025. On the surface, on a scoreboard, in a headline, that looks like a concerning result. But the scoreboard never tells the whole story. And in this case, the story underneath the score is dramatically more encouraging than the final result would suggest. Caitlin Clark went out there with a depleted roster, played 16 minutes in a game where the coaching staff was prioritizing player development over winning, and produced 21 points on elite shooting efficiency. She showed that the rust from the first preseason game is completely gone. She showed that her attacking, aggressive, draw contact, and get to the line game is fully operational. And then she took a hard fall that looked genuinely scary in the moment, walked off the court, and turned out to be completely fine. Nothing structural, nothing serious. Off the injury report for Saturday, Aliyah Boston, the Fever's second best player and the anchor of everything this offense wants to accomplish, got cleared to return for Saturday's game against Nigeria. She's fully healthy. She's ready to go. And her return changes the entire calculus of what this team can do when the regular season starts on May 9th. Two bombshells. Two enormous pieces of good news hiding inside a 5-point preseason loss. Two reasons why Fever fans should be walking away from Thursday's game with more excitement than worry. The defensive issues are real and need to be addressed. The rebounding problem needs Boston's presence and collective urgency to improve. The offensive decision-making needs to become simpler and more disciplined. These aren't small things. They require attention and focused work between now and May 9th. But the foundation is there, the talent is there, the coaching is there. The culture is being built actively and deliberately by players like Clark, who at 24 is already mentoring rookies and thinking about her responsibility to teammates rather than just her individual performance. The organizational commitment is there, demonstrated by Boston's historic contract and the investment in surrounding Clark with legitimate talent. Saturday's game against Nigeria gives the Fever one more preseason opportunity, this time with Boston back in the lineup, to start looking like the team they're capable of being. And then, a full week of preparation with a complete, healthy roster before the real games begin. The Indiana Fever lost to Dallas in preseason. Caitlin Clark scored 21 points in 16 minutes and walked away healthy. Aliyah Boston is cleared to return. The scary injury scare was nothing serious. And May 9th is coming fast. 2 bombshells, 1 week, and then everything that actually matters begins. Are you worried about the preseason losses, or are you focused on Clark's dominant performance and Boston's return? What are your expectations for the Fever heading into the regular season? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest analysis on Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever, and everything happening across the WNBA this season. The real games are almost here. We'll see you for all of it.